Hey everyone, welcome back to the Nexus. This is Em, and today we are bringing an exciting video as we are looking at the first set 3 PQ results. This happened in Bologna, Italy this past weekend. It was a redo of a PQ for set 2 that had to be moved for, I believe, weather conditions. So it happened this past weekend and set 3 was legal, making it the first essentially set 3 PQ. And I wanted to make a quick video to go through the top 8. So I want to thank Tommaso for sending it through. He was there playing with his Palp set 1 yellow. So thank you so much for sharing. We want to dive into the essentially the meta breakdown, and then we're going to look at the top 8 lists. So in this tournament we had 128 players. We had a full house. I believe it was 127 going into the tournament itself, but nonetheless a big sample size where we can see, you know, there was some clear favorites in terms of aggro, with Sabine being 24 out of the 127. Don't know why it adds to 126 there. It's probably correct. I think one was missing. Nonetheless, we have that huge representation alongside quite a few Django Tarkin Town, as well as Bossk Blue as a control representation. We have 9 Han Solo yellow. There's a couple of Italian words I'll help translate, but they're pretty straightforward. So we can see how the meta in Italy is quite diverse. It's really, really exciting to see players experimenting with new leaders with different bases. And there's a very cool surprise from top 8 that I cannot wait to share. But going into top 8, this is a snapshot of the breakdown. Kind of, you know, what we expect in terms of what just happened in Birmingham with Bossk Blue being so dominant. I think a lot of players wanted to either replicate with by going with Bossk Blue, or trying to counter it with a very quick and well-tested Sabine ECL. Speaking of, so we're diving into the lists here. I'm not going to spend too much time into lists that we know a lot of, but I want to shout out all the top 8 players. If you are one of these and I'm showing your deck list, please do leave a comment. Let us know if you want to share something about your deck. This Sabine ECL, piloted by Loved, I think, was is fairly straightforward. You know, honestly, I've not been playing much Sabine myself. I've been testing a lot against it. The deck has been evolving a lot. One interesting thing that we've seen changing in Sabine ECLs, but persisting in this list, is the Dark Saber. So the 3 of Dark Saber that have been now more and more moved to the side due to Django Tarkin Town just being able to exhaust and kind of prevent that 7 swing from Sabine. Here are in the main. Another noticeable, I think, unit is Jin Erso in main, but for the rest is our Sabine ECL. Congrats on the top 8. These are not in particular order. We have the finalist at the end. But here we see finally an Anakin Blue converting to top 8. So in Birmingham, it was the most represented deck. Here we had 6 Anakin Blue. And one of them made top 8. So huge congrats to Manilus for top 8. This is an Anakin Blue that is constantly evolving. We've seen a lot of content creators talking about it. The list has been kind of taking a couple of routes. I think this one, interestingly, is running the R2s and the C3POs, which is quite different from other like takes that players have been going with, using Bravado, for example, and like quite different approach to the deck that leans more into the Jedi Force kind of synergies. We don't see any Jedi lightsabers in this deck. We lean much more into a perhaps anti-control with the Pillage, with the Tech in main, and the K2SO. So looking at the main and the side, I think the objective here was to be a mid-range that was resilient against control and aggro, which is, one of the ways to be able to counter the current meta, which is either extremely control with Bossk Blue or extremely aggro with Sabine. So I really like this list. I like the approach of being able to have an early game that is, thanks to Anakin, capable of trading units and surviving, restoring, up until we get to a mid-late game where we're really able to kind of set our own pace, play our Poe, our Obi-Wan, our Lukes, and then close the game with Krayt Dragon that, in my opinion, especially with such a control meta, is very, very pivotal in these games where could go for ages. So congrats on this top 8, finally an Anakin Blue converting. And speaking of the boogeyman, we have seen 12 Bossk Blue. One of them made top 8, so congrats to Dux94 and his or theirs Bossk nella palude, in the swamp. And it is in fact in the swamp with all this removals and very little units. Very interesting playing Pershing for the extra draw, but we see some of the staples that Thork has kind of like set for this type of deck, with whom he won the recent tournament in Birmingham. So very, very similar. I cannot spot too many differences. The side deck has some interesting options. I do see only one restock, and it's in the side, which it's an interesting take, I think. But overall is our classic super hard control, which a lot of players seems to not love, let's say. And I see the Rootless Raiders inside, I guess, for the mirror match, as well as the to make an opening for, I guess, the more aggro matchups, the force chokes perhaps against the yellow Han, to get rid of the tech and the DJs. But yeah, congrats to Dux94 for the finish. And we had a Rey Tarkintown as well in top 8. Very interesting list, I think. It's, you could argue that essentially you swap the aspects and it's a Anakin, deck with 25 HP base. But one thing, most importantly, we've seen how strong Tarkintown is, and I think every leader can really benefit. And we have seen from last set how strong Rey can be with those low power units that still make such a difference in the game. We've seen the Village Protector, but also, classic Yoda and Sabine, such strong units. We have 2 copies of Regional Governor as well, which has been played more and more. It's very interesting main board tech, I think. We see the return of the Moisture Farmers, which are honestly really scary in an early game if you can't deal with them. And overall is a mid-range deck that really wants to have game against those Sabines and Django Tarkintowns by being able to set a board that can either restore or remove. We see the top target, the Daring Raid, the Restore Arc, and then, classic blue-red heroism wants to kind of shift the pace from the 5 resource onwards by playing big and impactful units every turn. So really, really good list from Babas. Congrats on the top. And then we see a super interesting list, in my opinion. I'm saying every list is interesting, but honestly, I do think that is the case. Italian players have really brought something quite unexpected, I think, to this PQ with Han Green that has all the essentially Han classic staples. We see the Falcons, the Spark of Rebellion, the new R2. Still plays DJ, even though it cannot play it for 5. With Tech, still is there for that, I think, long control games. And Green brings us some interesting options, right? More noticeably, the Han1, the U-Wing reinforcement, the pardon me, what's the name? The Hope, the 2-6. I'm trying to look at 2 screens, which help us against the Django Tarkin Town. But also I see the Marauder from set 2, which helps us ramp, is an ambush in space, really, really important. Speaking of ambush, we have Plo Koon. And then we have our Han Solo unit, and Amphis Nest, which has shown to be an extremely impactful unit. So overall, really interesting deck. We have Choose Sides in Change of Hearts in the sideboard, and we have Bamboozle, we have the Ambush ship. So I think Italian players were also very scared of Django Tarkin Town, and you can see it paid off to play a deck that had that resilience against that and against aggro, I would say. So congrats, Just Zimmo and their Han Green. And now for a bit of spice, let's say, we had what I believe is a aggro Palp Tarkin Town. I had to transcribe it. We only had a piece of paper, so I put it together. I actually forgot the sideboard. I'll find it and add it to the list. But you can see, again, that ingenuity and that originality I was mentioning earlier in the video coming out with this very, very interesting red aggressive Palp. We recently made a video with Lucas. You can go and check it out about Palp control. This is a Palp aggression deck. We want to play units every turn, maybe multiple units. We want to be able to use that Palpatine action every single turn and gain advantage by restoring, dealing chip damage, playing in space, an arena that until set 4 is still going to be underrepresented for most decks. So we gain a advantage there. So we make up from missing our leader by playing in space, leveraging that leader action every single turn, creating our clone troopers, and obviously relying on that triple dark raid, which has unlimited power, to quote our leader. It can literally take any single unit apart from the Ketsu and the phase 2 clone trooper, I believe. So extremely interesting deck. I'm really curious to know how this performed. Obviously made top 8. Congrats. There's my name there. Sorry, I'll find the name. Congrats to them for the top 8 with this. Leave us a comment. Let us know, have you tried something like this? Do you think could be viable? We'll see. And here we have the 2 finalists. So second place we had Jamma with his there's Sabine ECL. Another Sabine making the finals and playing the Darksaber, as well as some new pieces like the Donna, and really showing that Sabine is here to stay. A lot of players were worried about Boba disappearing and Sabine just running wild. And that might be the case, but we've seen out of all of the Sabines in this tournament, 2 have converted. So personally, I think, it's definitely one of the strongest decks, definitely a tier 1 deck, but it has a clear kind of play style that, we can prepare and try our best to counter. So we need to be aware of how this list is evolving, how it's being played, and what are the key cards that we need to be mindful of and perhaps like try to play around. But they played an amazing final. I was able to catch that last game. So congrats to Jama for the 2nd place. But on to our winner, Crownless Din, with none other than Cad TT. And if you guys have followed our channel recently, you may have seen we've done a video together with Ollie. This was the deck that we brought with our team to Birmingham, where we had 200 players. Ollie did top 8. And this is very similar to the list we played. Some main differences are the Greedo, which for us was a antagonizer, a Guevian antagonizer, but with a meta where Sabine is more prevalent, Greedo is definitely better. Now, our choice was because a Django Tarkintown was probably like the biggest threat. So it really depends what you expect to see. But very, very important, I think they went up in space units. They added 2 mercenary scanship, and they have a more consistent deck list. You can see everything is in 2 and 3s, mostly 3s. We only have the 2s of Bazine. The blaster should first. Well, actually, there's quite a few, but it's much more linear, let's say, than the list that we presented. And nonetheless, we're playing Jabba, 3 copies. There's a lot of people that are not high on Jabba, let's say. And 3, now there are 2 of them. And I've catch a couple of games, really, like, I'm still so high on now there are 2 of them. I think it's such a strong card, especially in this deck where the deck just functions really well, even without that card. But then when you hit that combo, it's just really, really great. So a very, I think, a very competitive deck, which will need to be, I think, inserted in the gauntlet of test when you start testing. And the reason is simply because of that ping Tarkintown combination. It's extremely backbreaking if you're trying to set your tempo from turn 1 with a turn 1 play, and that gets disrupted, and it kind of like snowballs. You're always 1 unit behind, and Cad has so many ways to then keep removing your cards with like a McClunky. The Jabba can find it. It costs 0. We play 3 Boba units, and we have a way to then kind of stall the game until the later stages where we can win with our big units. So huge congrats to Crownless Din for taking this Bologna PQ, which marks essentially the first set 3 planetary qualifier. Obviously, new ones will start with the new year. Really exciting to see where we're gonna go with the meta from here on, but really cool that we've had such a diverse top 8. I mean, you can see it on here, right? We had 7 leaders in top 8. Really, really exciting times to be able to test new leader, test new basis combination, and overall really enjoy this game that offers so many options. With that, I want to thank you for watching this video. Let us know what you think about this list. And until next time, this was Am.